think about the gravity of that shit. You know, if you go to someone's bio and they say they're a shadow priestess and they're a transformation junkie and a spirit goddess, let them walk their talk. Don't just blindly believe these things, because I'm seeing some shit I really can't unsee. I want some soap in my fucking eyes pronto. Hi Sunflowers, thank you so much for joining me. I want to apologise to anybody who feels like they've been wanting to hear from me on this issue and I've been late here on YouTube. I have been posting on my Instagram, on my wall and on my stories, and I've been protesting. But to be honest with you guys, October is a very, very busy time of month for tarot readers. I'm completely fully booked. And so I have only just found the time this evening to really sit down, think about what I want to say. And I've come to you to say it. And to be honest with you, I really want to get some stuff off my chest. I want to run, I want to vent, I want to contemplate, and I would like to do that with you guys. If there is anything during the course of this video that makes you angry, that you don't like, if you want to click off, if you want to unsubscribe, I would just ask you to please use the timestamps, okay? I have put timestamps on this video and it shows you basically what I'm going to be talking about and at what points I start talking about those things. So if you find that it's just getting too much for you, you're getting too hot and you want to, you know, you want to stop watching, please look at the timestamps and see if there's any other area of the discussion that you would be pleased to hear from me on, or that you could ingest, okay? If I've made videos in the past that have helped you, that have offered anything to your journey along the way, I'm asking you to please try and stick with me on this, okay? It's a really important topic, obviously, for everybody right now, and it's really important to me. So try and stick with me if you can. I understand if not, okay? I'm going to be working from notes. I actually always work from notes for my videos. But just letting you know, I might be looking down a little bit more than usual with this one, okay? I've got a lot of notes. There's a lot of shit that I want to get out and I want to get through. So sometimes I'll be looking down rather than ad-libbing to just make it easier to do this. So I want to start by saying, first thing I want to say, all the civilian lives that have been lost in this utter fucking clusterfuck are on my mind and in my prayers all the time. And those who have been injured, those who have been left without homes, those who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage in Gaza, and those who are still being held illegally without charge or trial in prisons in Israel as well, hostages in Israel. I haven't prayed so much for so many people in a very long time, okay? I got a whole new Mother Mary prayer book, all right, and a Mother Mary journal. This shit is happening, all right? Shit is going down in Maddox town. I'm making this video because I think it's important to do so, of course, but I also think it would be completely inauthentic for me not to do this video. As anyone who follows me on Instagram will know, I have been pretty preoccupied with this whole situation lately, as I think we all should be. I am wearing a keffiyeh with the Palestinian colours. It's from the Hibawi factory in Hebron in Palestine. I have worn this garment for quite a few years now to show my solidarity with the Palestinian cause, which has long been very close to my heart. Okay, I've worn this keffiyeh to protest for Palestinian rights in the past. I wear it pretty much every day, and I have never been prouder to wear it than at the protest recently in London. On the 7th of October, Hamas militants crossed the border into Israel, as we all know, and they committed atrocities. Okay, hands down. I'm reading in the last couple of days that it's something like 1,400 people died at the hands of Hamas, both Israelis and visitors to the region, murdered. Those atrocities understandably shook a lot of people to their core, myself included. I was, and I still am, shaken to my core by what happened that day, by some of the footage that I saw, and by the first-hand accounts of the terrifying situation that unfolded. There are lots of attacks in Israel that do shake me to my core. The synagogue shooting in Jerusalem still haunts me. I think that was only in January of this year. It still haunts me. It's all horrible. Okay, there's no fucking question. I have also been shaken to my core by the 100 children on average that are killed by Israeli forces every single year in Gaza and the West Bank. That has shocked me to my core also for a long time. I have been shaken to my core for many years by the treatment of Palestinians under blockade in Gaza, in an open-air prison in Gaza, unable to leave or enter without permits, without militarized checkpoints, under constant threat of bombs, which are not new in Gaza, by the way. This bombing is on steroids. What's happening now is undeniably genocidal bombing of a civilian population. But bombing campaigns are not new in Gaza. They happen regularly. You just don't happen to see them on the mainstream news. I have been shocked to my core watching the Palestinian people under heavy tech surveillance and apartheid conditions in the West Bank, unable to use certain roads because they're Palestinian. You know, literally in Hebron, having their doors welded shut at the front so they can't use the main roads, which are reserved only for Jewish Israelis and Jewish settlers, and not being able to drive down certain roads because they don't have Israeli number plates, having to go through militarized checkpoints with automated weapons pointed at them just for being Palestinian, being questioned, being searched, kids being lined up against the wall and searched when they're just playing. You know, for anyone who says that it's not an apartheid over there, they're ignorant. They know nothing. They know nothing. Or they do, and they're choosing to be untruthful. I have been shocked to my core for a long time to see Palestinians having funerals for their dead interrupted and desecrated, okay? Let's talk about the funeral of Shireen Abu Akleh. Let's talk about it for a second, because that shocked me to my fucking core. An acclaimed Palestinian-American journalist shot fatally by Israeli forces while reporting about a vicious raid in the Jenin refugee camp, which is a shame on this humanity, the refugee camps, the Jenin refugee camp in particular. She couldn't even have her fucking funeral peacefully. The Israeli police hit the coffin bearers with batons while they were carrying her, claiming that public order was being disrupted by the funeral procession. These people wanting to pay their respects to an acclaimed journalist. I'm not inventing this. You can see the footage on TV, the coffin dropping out of the arms of the coffin bearers, the disrespect. It was just sickening. Palestinians have had the graves of their loved ones in occupied territory dug up and destroyed to make way for children's parks. There is footage of a grieving Palestinian woman sobbing over a grave while a cherry picker off at the side waits for her to be removed so it can plough straight through the remains of her dead relative. I posted that footage on my Instagram stories last year. The footage is all there. It's always been available for people to see these things. I have been shocked to my core watching bombs before in Gaza, many times destroying humanitarian facilities, schools, homes, cafes, media centres, for daring to report the violence of the IDF. And this is for a long time. Like I said, the bombing didn't only just begin, it's just now harrowingly and insanely intensified. You know, it's like the plan is being sped up. The idea that bombings occur regularly in Gaza only in order to stop Hamas is insanity. It's clearly meant to demoralize, terrorize, and kill a population who have been pushed and pushed into a smaller and smaller area. I'm sure many of you have seen the map that shows how much Palestine has been occupied over time, how much there's been settlements against international law over the demarcation lines. If you haven't seen that map, now's a good time to understand and to get educated about this stuff. You know, it's colonialism. I've cried watching the videos from the neighborhoods of Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah, showing settlers chasing Palestinians in the streets, shouting racist shit at them with impunity, backed up by the government, backed up by the police. These are armed settlers doing this, and they face no consequences. I marched for Palestine in 2021 when the situation in Sheikh Jarrah was intolerable for me to watch. I was stunned by what I was seeing unfold. Even though I've been invested in this situation and worried about this for many years, it still never fails to stun me how the world can let this go on. I've been shocked to my fucking core watching Palestinians under constant threat of militarized state-sanctioned murder, violence, and unlawful arrest, and watching occurrences of this murder, violence, and unlawful arrest. And when people ask me, do I condemn Hamas? Fuck Hamas for what they did, but do you condemn this as well? Condemn this. You condemn this too. I was shocked to my core in 2018 by the merciless shooting of peaceful protesters at the Great March of Return. Peaceful, unarmed protesters, women and children, medical personnel. Ruzan al-Najjar, Palestinian nurse, 20 I think she was with her hands up to show that she was unarmed at this protest, fatally shot by Israeli forces while she was trying to help the wounded to move out of danger. Layla Al-Gandor, an 8-month-old baby, died at what was a peaceful act of civil disobedience. Do those lives matter also? Are you concerned about those unjustified killings too? Please be. Please be. I've been shocked to see the physical abuse and the harassment of Palestinians in the streets for a long time, the criminalisation, the arrest of children, loads of children, guys, for infractions such as picking flowers and herbs or looking suspicious with their school bag on the way to school. It's so Islamophobic, it's so anti-Arab, it's so cruel. 80% of children who've experienced Israeli detention and imprisonment attest to being beaten by grown adults while in custody. You can see videos online of former IDF soldiers speaking out, bravely I think, speaking out about the routine violence and intimidation that they were ordered to direct at Palestinians. One thing a lot of people don't understand about Israel, right, is that the military conscription is mandatory, okay, for most Israelis. It's not their free choice to go into the IDF. They have to do it. And some Israelis have taken their experiences in the IDF, the IOF, should I say, the Israeli occupying forces. They've taken their experiences in that organization and they've decided to do something for Palestinians by speaking out, by speaking the truth. Listen to some of those stories online. Those former soldiers are isolated and attacked for speaking out about what they've done, about orders that they refused to follow because they knew it was wrong, and about orders that they did follow, and they're now traumatized by that. Listen to those stories. I'm not making this shit up. I've been shaken to my core for the longest time to witness an indigenous population being pushed and pushed with nowhere near the same legal rights as the population that the government wants to have replace them. I've been shaken to my core over and over again by the footage of settlers stealing homes. Often they're Western settlers to the region as well. You know, I mean, not that it would be any different if it was born and bred Israelis, but it is often like Western settlers. It's alarming. It's like people from Brooklyn coming over to Israel because they have like a right of return, a birthright return, I don't know, whatever it is called, okay? They come over as settlers and they steal homes. We're talking about settlers under IDF guard, sanctioned by the police, kicking Palestinians out of homes that were built 200, 300 years ago by their ancestors, displacing them in order to ethnically cleanse the region, in order to take up more and more of Jerusalem and the West Bank. They bribe them out of their homes. They harass them out of their homes. They make it impossible to live there. The surveillance is crazy, my loves. It's crazy. There's cameras pointing into Palestinians' homes. They've gone into Palestinian homes and put cameras on the roofs to be able to watch Palestinians all over the neighborhood. It's criminalizing them just for being who they are, just for being what they are. It's such a hostile environment to live in, and it's scary. It's dangerous. I've been shaken not only by the merciless, sickening bombs on Gaza, but also now the murder of Palestinians in the West Bank. It's happening right now by armed settlers, and the IDF are, you know, allowing it. And I'm not sure about all the different cases, but it's fucking crazy. It's something like 60 people have died in the West Bank since this started, because now our attention, or the attention of the media, is on Gaza. They're going into the West Bank and they are perpetrating crimes. They are displacing people. They're murdering people. I'm shaken to the core by all of this. You know, are you as well? Because you should be. I just think if we want to talk about what we're shaken to the core by, we have to make sure we're shaken to the core by these terrible things happening to human beings, not just to human beings that you consider to be worthy or superior or that you can identify with more. When the attacks happened in Israel on October 7th, when the murders happened, when the atrocities happened, I can understand why it might have seemed heartless or shocking to see people bringing up these injustices against Palestinians straight away on social media, talking about it, getting the word out about that. It might have felt a lot like pro-Palestinian voices were overlooking these terrible crimes that had been committed and are still ongoing with the hostages that have been taken. I can understand why it might have looked very cold. I can understand why it might have even appeared as though people that were talking about these concerns they have about Palestine were celebrating the deaths of Israelis and visitors to that region, which I would never, ever do. I don't want to see any death, okay? I don't want to see any fucking murder at all. Every life is so precious. I don't want to see it in any regard. But the truth is that, first of all, as soon as these attacks happened, it will have been very, very glaringly obvious to a lot of people that have campaigned against these things happening to Palestinians. It would have been very obvious to a lot of them what was coming. It was very, very obvious to me. As soon as it happened, it was so awful. And I just had so much fear, and it was so sad, and it was so scary. And I know people in Israel. I have people I love in Israel. I have clients in Israel. And I was really freaked out. And I was also thinking, what's coming? What am I about to watch? What is going to be fucking unleashed? And that is what a lot of people that campaign and protest and petition for Palestinian rights, that's what a lot of them will have been thinking. Okay, it's not a celebration for like 99.999% of people. It was not a celebration of any of this shit, okay? No one wants any of it. It's just that it's the most important time to speak out about context, and the truth is that you must contextualize and you must explain and understand violent acts in order to prevent them. The root cause of this violence is and always has been occupation, violent occupation. People like me who have been reading about this shit and protesting about this shit and concerned about this shit for a long time want a cessation of violence, yes, but we want a cessation of all violence. And the amount of violence that's been committed against the Palestinian people by the Israeli army, by armed settlers, is overwhelming. And it does not get the mainstream media coverage that it should. And there are reasons for that. The truth is that if you only care about what happens to Israelis and you want to dismiss and ignore what happens to Palestinians, that is so problematic. There's so much toxic conditioning there. There's so much to look at there. If you want to see Israelis as human beings who are all different, who are all sovereign, they're all worthy of life, but you want to see Palestinians as just synonymous with Hamas, there's so much bile in that, my loves. There's so much othering and so much shadow. It has to be looked at. What's happening in Gaza now is not going to stop pain and anguish for anyone. The truth is that the only way to end violence in that region is to begin to dismantle the apartheid state. You cannot consistently dehumanize and disenfranchise a people for decades in a highly militarized way, using a violent, entitled army, stripping people of their safety, their land, their lives, and not expect that a small percentage of them are going to arm themselves and do some fucked up shit. You can't expect that. Palestinians and their allies have been talking about this. A lot of you are very clued up that watch me, a lot of my audience. I know that. And I know I've got people in my audience who are from the Palestinian diaspora as well. And I know that I have Arab audience members from various countries. You're going to be way more clued in a lot of cases. But a lot of you and your friends and loved ones are only just watching any pro-Palestinian words now because it's in the news now. And the issue is being framed by the media right now as an unprovoked attack, on Israel with no rhyme or reason, no context, no history, besides Islam being inherently violent, which is very often inferred and which is insidious. It's just like, Arabs are just bad. Muslims are just impossible. And bear in mind, it's not just Muslims in Palestine, okay? But a lot of it is anti-Muslim rhetoric. It's a hangover from the war on terror. It's a continuation of that racist, anti-Arab rhetoric of the war on terror, which caused untold, unspeakable devastation in Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of citizens in Iraq were killed. I marched against that war and I said, not in my name. And if you think I'm not going to do the exact same thing now, if you think I haven't already done the exact same thing now about what's happening in Gaza, then you don't fucking know me at all. Ignoring the context of all of this, ignoring how it came to this point, is not going to help Palestinians or Israelis. And a lot of Israelis actually know that. They are aware that this shit cannot go on. They are aware that their government have dealt with this in the exact wrong way, you know, by just putting more and more pressure on the Palestinians, by giving them the Iron Dome instead of any kind of political solution whatsoever. They're aware. What I've been seeing since the 7th of October on social media is a really unfortunate influx of a lot of people who haven't been invested in these issues at all before that day. They had no prior understanding of what's been going on there, which is fine, okay? We can't all know about everything. We can't all be aware of fucking everything, okay? But these people that couldn't even point Israel or Palestine out on a fucking map before that day are wading into the conversation. And frankly, they're advocating genocide, and it's scary. It's happening right now in the Gaza Strip. I'm seeing comments about that I cannot unsee. I cannot unsee these comments. They're so flippant. They're so scary. They're so cold. I've been seeing a meme doing the rounds online that says, if you've ever wondered what you would have done about the genocide going on against Jews in Nazi Germany, what you're doing right now is what you would have done then. And I think there's a lot of credence to that. I really do. Of course, we're seeing a lot of idiocy from clueless fucking celebrities who really don't know how to stay in their lane. Justin Bieber and Jamie Lee Curtis, these people posting "We stand with Israel" while they have a picture of Gaza, like an aerial photo of Gaza bombed out. It's ridiculous. If the whole thing wasn't so agonizing, it would be a fucking joke. But I'm also seeing a ton of bigotry and stereotypes about Arabs and Islamophobia in the spiritual community. And I know that some of you guys are going to know what the fuck I'm saying, because you've seen it too. I'm seeing it all over the place on social media. I've seen some comments underneath my own pinned post about Gaza and in my direct messages on Instagram. Just unbelievable stuff, guys. Unbelievable. I'm old enough and ugly enough to remember making a video about Black Lives Matter during the first wave of the Black Lives Matter movement, which I consider to be a new civil rights movement. And I remember during the second wave of activism in 2020, when I made videos and I was involved in the discussion. So I should have known that I might see some stuff in the spiritual community that was not going to pass my fucking vibe check, right? Because that happens. I know that. I should have been ready. But for some reason, I wasn't ready. Like, I don't know. There's something about the scale of it or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but you would have thought I'd be a bit more hardy and a bit more well-worn and a bit more prepared to understand that there's lots of people that brandish around lots of spiritual words and do lots of spiritual things and have clients and run spiritual businesses who are just like, you know, unreal. I wouldn't have them over to lunch because I just think there's so much work there that needs to be done. But this is where you really see that stuff come out. I'm not necessarily upset with smaller accounts on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever that aren't speaking out about this because they run a small business. They need to make some money from that business. You know, they have kids to feed, they have rent to pay, and they're scared of getting shadow banned. You know, I used to be at one time a card slinger who was very early in my business. And I really needed to make it work. I wanted to make it fly. I was making a bit of money and, you know, I needed to make sure that I was still building things. And even though I've never cared what anybody thought about my politics, and I'll scream about things till I'm blue in the face if I want to, I'm very vocal on a lot of stuff, and that's how I've always been. But I do understand the need to avoid getting shadow banned. I do understand the need to avoid having the algorithm boot you so completely away from your following that your business just basically dies. I understand that that happens with people, you know, that they're trying to avoid getting shadow banned. What I can't abide, and what I really can't abide, is the amount of spiritual accounts that I've seen and spiritual business owners who are saying things like, you know, posting on social media doesn't do anything. I'm doing the real work behind the scenes. I don't need to post about the situation. And they always call it like the situation or whatever. They never, ever state anything about their beliefs or anything like that. They're trying to be very, very beige about it, very mauve. And they say things like, I'm doing more important work. I'm listening to Palestinians. You know, I'm giving them the room and I'm giving them the space. It's a cop-out. That is a cop-out. If you don't want to say anything about what's going on, don't say anything about what's going on for whatever your reasons are, okay? And they might be understandable reasons, but do not shame others for speaking out. Do not project onto them by saying like, you're not doing anything, you know? What you're doing is unimportant. that is really dangerous, because you know what? If you really were listening to Palestinians, if you really were listening to their accounts, if you really were paying attention to what they want, you would understand that Palestinians are asking us to share this shit, to talk about it, to mobilize, to get into discussions, to call our representatives, but especially to post it on social media. There's a reason, there is a reason, my loves, that a lot of these videos are filmed with English subtitles or in English. English is not their first language, okay? Okay, Habibi? It's not their first language. They're doing it for us. They're doing it so we can post it, so it can go as far as it can, so people will pay attention. You know, like, they're asking us to do that. So if you don't want to say anything, don't say anything. But don't shame spiritual accounts for putting something in your face that you maybe don't want to see, maybe you don't want to deal with. Maybe you're worried that you will be pressured to say something or get involved in some way or call your followers to donate somewhere. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't want the heat that might come from that. Okay, fine. Just stay silent then. But I've seen accounts saying, like, I'm doing something more important. I'm not just posting stuff. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. It was the same with BLM. I'm not speaking up on it, but I'm doing real work. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. If you were doing real work, you'd want to shout about it and get others to do it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, like I said, there are reasons why people don't post right now. Shadow banning is getting really, really tasty at the minute. They love a bit of it, this shadow banning. They're really targeting people who are speaking out, who are expressing concern about Gaza. Just expressing concern, you know, about fucking shitloads of children and unarmed civilians in need of food and water and electricity and medical supplies being mercilessly bombed every 3 to 4 hours. Just speaking out about that will get you a shadow ban. Oh yeah, you know, so I understand that there might be some worry about that for some people. I get that it's a risk. I understand. Okay, but don't you dare come out and say that other people shouldn't speak on it, that other people shouldn't mobilize or suggest that people donate, or even just talk about the feelings they're having about it. Don't do that. And then you've got these huge spiritual accounts, massive spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, right, that have millions of followers on Instagram, millions, and they are talking tosh. They are talking utter fucking fried banana shit. It's unreal, the stuff that I'm seeing. And people are eating it up. These people that are supposed to be the leaders, the mentors in our supposed spiritual community. Gabrielle Bernstein on Instagram, huge spiritual author. I believe she also has an affirmations deck as well. I've listened to some of her talks in the past online. 1.3 million followers this woman has, 1.3 million on Instagram. And on her stories the other day, she posted the footage of Kamala Harris announcing that Israel is going to have everything it needs to defend itself. We're going to send weapons, all of that stuff. Gabrielle Bernstein posted that on her stories with the caption, "Beautiful." Beautiful was the caption. It's beautiful, is it, that America is sending $4 billion worth of military aid to Israel so it can continue fucking flattening Gaza, bombing every possible facility, bombing churches and mosques, bombing fucking supposed escape routes, bodies blowing up like courtesy of American tax dollars. That's beautiful to you, is it? Are these the spiritual teachers that you want, really? Because I'll tell you something, I can kiss the upper levels of my career and my future plans or whatever. I'll kiss it all goodbye because I don't want to be on a panel with anyone like that. I don't want to speak at any festival or any event with anyone that would call that beautiful. That is fucked, guys. That's fucked. This is unreal. I saw a woman under my own post about Gaza just saying, like, we need to end the siege. This is insanely disproportionate response. This is murderous. This is scary and it's got to stop. Literally all I was saying, okay? I didn't say I love Hamas. I want to have a picnic with Hamas. I want to, you know, buy Hamas a Coke. I never said any of that fucking shit, okay? I don't think Hamas is actually that good for the Palestinian population at all, to be honest. And the armed wing can get fucked, you know, but like, I understand the context, the history, the reasons why these things fucking happen. because I'm not just some brainwashed fucking... Anyway, this woman posted underneath my post about Gaza saying, Israel are eradicating evil from the world and all pro-Palestinian protests should be banned. So we've got a woman advocating genocide, advocating the idea that one country is evil and the other country is, you know, the light seekers, the way showers, right? We've also got someone advocating the banning of peaceful civil disobedience, a fundamental right for everyone in a free nation, right? So she's advocating those things. I clicked on her bio. Do you know what it said on her bio? Truth seeker, spirit goddess, transformation junkie, one love. One love. I don't want anything to do with this. Count me out. I don't want anything to do with this. If this is a community, not mine. Not mine. Think about the gravity of that shit. You know, if you go to someone's bio and they say they're a shadow priestess and they're a transformation junkie and a spirit goddess, let them walk their talk. Don't just blindly believe these things, because I'm seeing some shit I really can't unsee. I want some soap in my fucking eyes pronto. I had other comments underneath that post as well, okay? And I would like to address some of the critiques that I received, some of the things that were said to me. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of support for my post. There were a lot of people who vibed with it and got what I was saying and feel similarly. But I want to address some of the things that came up from different comments and put them in this video for posterity, okay? To have it on record, what it is that I think of these things, because frankly, it was using a lot of my energy and a lot of my focus where I needed to use my energy and focus elsewhere, okay? I have Palestinian friends, I have Israeli friends, I have shit I need to do, I'm writing a book, it's October, okay? Where tarot readers like that are full-time like me have no time. So after a while, I was just like, you know what? I'm stopping this. But let me just talk about a few things, all right, that were leveled at me. The first accusation I got a few times, and I've received it before, okay, I'm no stranger to this, was that I need to do my shadow work, that I'm not doing my shadow work, that I've really got to do my shadow work. I'm no stranger to terms like projection and shadow work being thrown at me when I have a point of view that people don't agree with. I'm no stranger to that like weaponized therapy speak, okay? Let me fucking tell you something about shadow work. Let me tell you something about it, all right? Shadow work is both personal and it's also collective. And the collective part is just as important, but it's not spoken about as much as the personal stuff. And a lot of people that make their living from talking about shadow work or talking about that in part are very, very big on the personal shit and not so much on the collective, which is fine and it's understandable. But the collective part is there. And we have to do a lot of collective shadow work in this moment, because this is a collective situation, meaning that it's about society, it's about government, it's about what goes on beyond yourself. To greet the shadow is to greet what is underlying. It is to greet what is disguised and see its face. It's to look at the dark hidden root of something. And it is to see what you definitely didn't see before, and what your friends and family and people around you might not have seen before. It's the art of looking at what you don't want to see, guys. It's looking further. It's going deeper. It's understanding more. It's integrating the entire picture rather than just focusing on the simple digestible surface of something or only what you want to see of something. You know, for the shadow to be considered at all, I think the ego has got to get uncomfortable. And I think when people get angry about me talking about Gaza and how fucking insane and unfair this is and how it needs to stop, they're not allowing their ego to get uncomfortable. And they're telling me that I need to do my shadow work. I don't really feel that I have much personal shadow work to do, to be honest, around this issue, other than maybe I need to shadow work. Maybe the shadow I need to look at is the shadow of superiority, like the superiority that I felt over the commenter who posted underneath my post, right? Commented underneath my post, an Israeli flag, and just said, turn Gaza into a car park. Wow. Yeah, I think I do need to shadow work my feeling of superiority over that person, because that's just fucked. The collective shadow that I've always tried to do with this situation is looking at and understanding the cruelty and the violent consequences of settler colonialism. Until we unpack that shit and we look it in the fucking face, we will continue to see people claiming that incidents like this exist in a vacuum. They just exist in a vacuum. They're politically and socially unexplainable and unprovoked. They're unforeseen. Nothing was going on beforehand that could possibly have led to the only point of focus that we're interested in talking about. Oh no, this is just some fucking crazy thing that happened because Islam itself is evil and fundamentally fucked. There's nothing else we need to consider. And therefore nothing needs to change going forward. It's business as usual. We just need to eradicate the evildoers. There's nothing else to look at. Does that sound like shadow work to you? No, it's avoidance. It's cognitive dissonance. And there has been avoidance and cognitive dissonance in that region and around this issue for a long time now at the cost of many innocent lives on all sides. It's not shadow work. That is not shadow work. You're focusing on the thing you want to focus on to the detriment of all the information that could lead you to any deeper understanding. So as much as I've always hated this fucking shitty thing people do, where they come in, they disagree with someone and they say, you need to do your shadow work, which is it's a thing that's just thrown around. I've never said it to anyone, but maybe I'm saying it to you bitches now. You bitches that say that kind of thing. Maybe you need to do your shadow work. Shadow work is uncomfortable, okay? Let's take the situation that happened at the rave, for example, okay? Fucking terrible, awful situation. Everything that happened in Israel, the assault on Israel that day by Hamas, everything about it scared me. Everything about it upset me. But the rave, in particular, was very, very difficult for me to process because I am a raver. Okay, I love raves. I've raved on the beach. I've raved in the woods. I've raved in warehouses all over this country. I love nothing more, actually, than just getting fucked up and dancing with my friends till sunup. That is one of my key things to do with my life. It is a spiritual activity for me. And I could not help graphically putting myself there, imagining my mind so open in such hedonism, in such feelings of oneness, and experiencing something like that. It really, really disturbed me, okay? The shadow work, though, that we need to do around that is that this rave was happening 5 miles from an open-air prison with deprivation, with fear, not being able to leave, not always being able to have access to things, being terrified all the time, bombs dropping, because like I said, it happened way before this retaliation for the Hamas attack. A very, very, horrible life expectancy. You've got the rave going on here, and then literally 5 miles away, I think Barnaby Raine said that life expectancy drops by 10 years. 5 miles away. 5 miles away over that wall, life expectancy drops 10 years. It's a completely different world for those people in there. That's the shadow work. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to think about. It's awful. And I'm saying this not because I think Israelis deserve to fucking die. It's because I don't want anything else like this to happen. And until we look at that reality, that disparity, that cruelty, until we look at that and we unpack that, more people will die on both sides. It's not because I think they deserve it. I want to bring them back. I wish I could bring every single one of them back. I'm sure a lot of them didn't even fucking agree with how the people in Gaza are being treated. I'm sure they just wanted to go and have a dance. They didn't think about it any further than that. I don't know why I'm saying that. I just know that like the younger generation in Israel, and especially those that are involved in like dance music and stuff like that, they're also not impressed with anything their government are doing, and they know about the Palestinian plight, and it's not cool to them, to a lot of them. Israelis are not a monolith. Palestinians are not a monolith, okay? They don't all think the same. I wish I could bring them back. It is very, very fucking sad and brutal what's happened. But the shadow work, I'm afraid to say, is looking at the reality of hedonism and laughter and joy and decadence happening next to deprivation and fear and dehumanization and sadness. That's shadow work. Enjoy that shit. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. And some of you are going to be listening to this and you're going to be very angry with me. You're going to be like very, very upset with me that I could say something like that. But shadow work is hard. I also want to talk about the accusations of anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, I'm no stranger to these accusations because they come along every single time people try and talk about Palestine. For a long time, I was involved in a couple of different Palestinian organisations. I have marched before, as I said, for Palestine on and off through the years. And I've tried to raise awareness. And I have not had that accusation levelled at me, actually, at protests or in any other kind of forum, only online. Only whenever I've spoken about it online. In my stories on Instagram is a big place where I share things from Palestinian accounts, and I have done for a few years now, and I have received that accusation. I have not spoken up as much about what I feel about Palestine and what I know about Palestine because I've been really sickened and really scared of that particular accusation of anti-Semitism. And I'm ashamed of myself, actually. I'm ashamed of myself for being afraid of that. But it is a really scary thing because it's a horrible thing to be accused of. So I want to talk about that now because I was called a Jew hater in the comments underneath my post because I don't agree with what the regime of the state of Israel is doing. And obviously, Israel is, it's a Jewish ethno-state. It was created so that Jews could go there and have safety and live peacefully, which PS has not clearly fucking happened. So I just want to say a few things about that. I just disagree with Zionism, okay? I just disagree with especially violent or hardline Zionism. I disagree with ethno-states, like forced ethno-states in general. I think we should be able to live in a majority Jewish or majority Muslim country and not be Jewish or Muslim and be safe. I don't think we should be harassed. I don't think we should be pushed out. I don't think we should have less rights. So I don't really like any kind of political theory which is about creating a country that is safe for one people and not others. I have no quarrel with Judaism. My quarrel is with Zionism. Many Zionists are Jews. There are a lot of Zionists as well who are not Jews. And I disagree with them all equally. You know, I don't save extra levels of disagreement for Jews, for Jewish Zionists. I just disagree with Zionism. There are a lot of people that are not Jewish that support Zionism. And there are a lot of Jews who are anti-Zionist, my loves. For as long as there have been Zionist Jews from 1947 or 1948 onwards, for as long as there have been Zionist Jews, people that believe that Israel should be the Jewish homeland, there have been anti-Zionist Jews. There is a long and strong history of anti-Zionist Judaism. I hate to break it to you, but, you know, actually Jews are not all in agreement about Israel being a protected Jewish ethno-state. It's not something they all agree on, believe it or not. At the march that I went to Saturday before last, there were tons of Jews holding signs about apartheid and occupation and how they want justice for the Palestinians. And when I've gone on marches before, there are always Jews. There are always rabbis. The signs that they hold say things like, "This Jew does not support genocide," and "Jews for justice for Palestinians." 500 Jewish Americans just occupied Congress to demand a ceasefire, guys. For fuck's sake. Jewish Voice for Peace? Look it up. Follow them on Instagram. Amazing organisation. Jews in the US are putting their fucking bodies on the line right now. There's another organisation, Jewish Peace Organisation, campaigning to end apartheid in Israel. They're called If Not Now. I've followed their account for a long time too. They stopped traffic in New York the other night protesting this shit. Their grandparents and great-grandparents survived or died in the Holocaust. They are Jews too. And I agree with those Jews. I admire those Jews. You could also say that I sympathise with Jewish people who have a more complex relationship with Israel for many obvious reasons. Some have friends and family there. Some were born there and live there. Some are just attracted to the idea of a place where Jewish people can feel safe. And I'm not ignorant to why that might be, obviously. I'm not ignorant to why that might be. The sense of hope or safety or belonging that might offer. So maybe, you know, with Jews like that, I might have some things to say. We might have a debate. We could have some things to talk about. And then you've got Jews like the Israeli ambassador to the UK, Tippi Hotovely. She's an extremist. She is the mouthpiece for her government in the UK. She's on TV all the time here. She recently said on UK television that there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. She supported a movement to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, the third holiest site for Muslims. She once said all territory that's west of the Jordan River should only be held by Jewish people. She said that. You know what that means? It means ethnic cleansing. It means we need to get rid of these other cunts. We need to have it just for us. She once showed up to Israel's parliament. Tippi Hotovely once showed up to Israel's parliament with a book filled with empty pages, and she taunted Palestinian lawmakers by opening the book up and saying, "This is a history of your people." And by that, she is saying, you don't exist. Your stories aren't important. You were never here. You won't be remembered. You mean nothing. She doesn't even think Arabs and Jews should be allowed to marry, guys. I think her rhetoric is dangerous and cruel. I don't agree with her whatsoever. So here you have an awkward position, okay? Because if you're accusing me of anti-Semitism, you can clearly see that I agree with some Jews and I commend their actions, and I disagree with other Jews and I condemn their actions. It's almost as if Jews are not a monolith, isn't it? It's almost as if this is not about religion, but it's actually about human rights and freedom of movement and international law. Funny that, because that's what it is about. I can very much assure you, though, that with all of these different stripes of Jews, I don't think they should be condemned to death. I don't think they should be indiscriminately carpet bombed. I don't think they should be put in camps. I don't think they should be forced to stop practicing their infinitely fascinating religion. I want them to be safe, whether I agree or disagree with them. I want them to be housed. I want them to have food and water. I don't want them to suffer. Disagreement is not hate. And this attack that people make against people that are concerned about Palestinians, that they're anti-Semitic, you're a Jew hater, you're anti-Semitic, you hate Jews, that's not going to wash anymore. It scared me the first time I was accused of it in 2020. And then in 2021, I posted some stuff about Palestine on my stories when Sheikh Jarrah was being attacked. And I got accusations of it then. I was scared and it upset me, but you know what? There comes a point where you have to know that that's a weaponization of anti-Semitism and that people say it so that you stay silent. And there are so many Jews speaking up now against the actions of the Israeli government, so many Jews now, that that's not going to wash anymore. Your time of being able to scare people like me by accusing them of being anti-Semitic is over. It's fucking over. I'm not upset with Zionism because it was an idea that sprang from a Jewish mind and it gained traction in the Jewish community. I'm upset with Zionism because of what it does to other people that are around it. I just have a disagreement with anyone who thinks that the Israeli treatment of Palestinians is okay, that it's okay to get rid of anyone else except Jews so they can live there exclusively. Honestly, if Palestinians were being treated this way by a bunch of people who recognised a wonky yellow teapot as their Lord and Saviour, and they prayed to that wonky yellow teapot every day, I would protest against their government too. Not because of the wonky yellow teapot. Keep the wonky yellow teapot. Go fucking nuts. It's not about the wonky yellow teapot. It's because it's fucking wrong to treat people this way. Religion has got nothing to do with my investment in this. Keep the religion. Just the Zionism is so dangerous. I think Jews have been collectively through an unforgivable amount of shit. Unforgivable. And everywhere I go, when I'm abroad in a different city, when I go anywhere, I always make a point, if it was a city that was in any way affected by having ghettos, pogroms, anti-Jewish sentiment, if it was affected by what happened during the Nazi regime, any of that, like I go in Berlin, I've gone in Amsterdam, I've gone everywhere to the Jewish museums and the Holocaust memorials. I always take flowers. to Jewish memorials and Holocaust memorials. I spend time thinking about what has happened. I've been to Anne Frank's house, all of that, okay? I think they've been through an unforgivable amount of shit. And I feel like conflating the entirety of Judaism with the actions of Israel, of the Israeli government, is honestly just another truckload of shit that Jews do not need. To be honest, it sounds dumb to do that, and it sounds dangerous to do that, so I'm not going to do it. At the end of the day, some Jews are Zionists and some Jews are not, and some Jews are conflicted and disturbed and want to check out. Jews are people. Jews are fucking people. Disagreeing with some of them is not hate. I want to address another comment that I received, which was, how could you take a side, you know? You should be for peace on both sides. Peace requires a political solution, especially in this situation. And there's no way to talk about that political situation without acknowledging that there is a serious power imbalance going on here. This isn't a fucking football game, all right? I'm not trying to pick a side. I'm trying to talk about objective truth. I'm trying to talk about what apartheid and cruelty and unchecked murder over time turns into. It's the truth that settler colonial violence will incite both non-violent and violent resistance. And this will go on until it is the colonialism and the attitude that stops. You can't win with people who feel like just talking about the apparatus of settler colonialism and what it's done is inherently like picking a side. I don't want anyone to fucking die. I don't want anyone's life to be treated like lesser than another life. But it's the violence of colonialism and displacement and harassment, etc., and murder that leads to that. And Israel is strategic to the US, don't forget. The support of Israel is very much in full swing with the UK government and always has been. I've always been disturbed by the fact that our government has given Israel money, which I know it uses to further oppress Palestinians. It's always disturbed me. I want to live in this country, but that's one of the things that disturbs me about every single government, okay? And it's strategic to the UK too. Joe Biden recently said if Israel didn't exist, we'd have to invent it. And various different US leaders and various different prominent men in the US that are in control of things over the course of time have expressed that Israel is a very, very useful piece of land in the Middle East. Biden has said a few other things lately that have really, really, really shown his arse. He's just showing his whole fucking arse, talking openly about how strategic Israel is to the US. So all of the money that they have for these weapons and to uphold apartheid and to do all these cruel things they've been doing for a long, long, long time, guys. 75 fucking years, all right? If you don't know what the Nakba is, look it up. It's all been facilitated by the British and the US, etc., largely because, pretty much totally because of strategic advantage in the region, wanting to have their little, what they call the diplomatic outpost in the East. It's useful to them to have a friend in that region. It props up their agendas, and that further feeds this horrible colonial machine. So these sides are not equal. How can I possibly pick a side? It's like picking a side between a 2-year-old defenseless child and like Lennox Lewis, like the boxer. I mean, it's not picking a side to want to defend the child and like say, hey, this isn't right. These two can't have a boxing match. This isn't equal. This is insane. Get this child out of the ring. That wouldn't be picking a side. That would just be fucking sensible. Another comment that's come up a few times is they celebrated the attacks on Israel. Palestinians wantonly celebrated the attacks on Israel. They cheered, they danced. I saw it on the internet. I've heard this a few times. I've read it in my comments. I've read it in my private messages. First of all, who is they? Who is they? Do you know how you sound? Do you mean all of them? Every single last one of them. They all celebrated, did they? All the kids, the elderly, they were all out in the street having a fucking massive party. All like 2 million of them in Gaza. Do you know how fucking dangerous that kind of rhetoric is? Do you know what it sounds like? Can you think of anywhere in history where you might have heard something similar? They all did this. They all feel that. All of them. All of them. They're like a little army of ants. They're all the same. Second of all, if you think celebrating civilian death is a crime worthy of genocidal carpet bombing of entire areas of land, then I hate to tell you this, but there are currently some very unsavory videos of groups of Israelis dancing in the streets, singing "Gaza is a cemetery, there are no children in Gaza, there are no schools in Gaza." This is radicalization. When people are radicalized through their education system, the media machine, parental conditioning, they do become unsavory in their behavior. Here's a fucking piping hot take for you, though. As abhorrent as I find that kind of celebration to be from anyone, I don't think we should bomb the unearthly fucking shit out of Israeli towns and cities either. I don't think some groups of Israelis celebrating the bombing of Gaza are indicative of all Israelis. Shocking, isn't it, to think of? Yeah, I don't think mass civilian death is ever a good idea. It's like when people say they celebrated, it's like, cool, does that justify this wanton, insane genocidal violence? Because there's been some celebrations of civilian death on the other side too. Does that justify wanton, insane genocidal violence to Israelis? I don't understand what you're trying to say by that. Are you trying to say that in some way all Palestinians in Gaza deserve this then? Because some people let off some steam about some atrocities, because they're so far beyond being able to think like anyone who's lost somebody for fairly understandable reasons, just like Israelis who've lost people might have some sick, fucked up ideas too about how the other side deserves revenge, whoever they are, you know? People are fucked up. People are all different. People do mad shit. It's crazy to me that you would come to me and say, well, they celebrated. First of all, who's they? Do you know what you sound like? You're talking about an entire group of people, like over 1 million of them. Get a grip. Second of all, nothing would justify this. I don't want those people who celebrated to die. I want them to get help. I want them to not feel like they have to be like that. And same with the other side too. I fucking hated watching Israelis dance around singing "Gaza is a cemetery, there's no children in Gaza." It's fucking horrible. But none of this has got anything to do with how much I want to see people bombed. And if it's got something to do with how much you want to see people bombed, have a word with yourself. Have a fucking word with yourself. Go and sit in the corner somewhere and have a Ribena and think about your life, babe. Jesus, wept. Here's a classic piece of like very basic spiritual work that you can do, okay? Don't negatively categorize an entire group of people. It's never ended well. It literally never ends well. On its own, it's dehumanizing. En masse and in public and on social media, it's a rhetoric that excuses genocide. It is. Pay attention to where you are hearing negative categorizations of an entire group of people. Okay, especially if those people don't have much institutional power whatsoever and you barely hear their voices anywhere. You certainly don't hear their voices in the media, but you're reading articles or listening to podcasts or listening to TV reports that are saying they do this, you know? Like everyone in that group hates us. All of them think that way. They all want war. They all agree with their government, you know? You see how it makes it easier to be flippant and frivolous about actual human beings when we just apply those blanket statements, you know? And then I guess it makes it easier for us to explain their deaths away in our heads, like, oh, well, they all supported Hamas. They all supported Hamas, every single one of them, even the babies. It's just unreal to me. This is the times we're living in. And let's talk about Hamas, okay? Because I've had quite a few people say to me, what about Hamas? What about Hamas? What about Hamas? You know, there's been no elections in Gaza since 2006. Anyway, like half the fucking people that are experiencing this either weren't born to vote for Hamas or weren't old enough to vote for Hamas anyway. And you clearly understand nothing about the context, again, the context of why a group like Hamas would come to be in charge. You know, it's almost like every single step of the way, every single time we try to get beyond anything to the point of saying, how do we sort this out? What do we want from our governments and why do we want it? We're faced with this conversation blocker of like, I need you to condemn Hamas. I need you to condemn Hamas. Do you think I think what they did was okay? I'm just talking about context and I'm talking about perspective. That's why I went through so much stuff at the beginning of this video about all the fucking things. And that's not even a drop in the ocean of the things that have been happening to Palestinians for fucking years. I'm gonna reference, is it Ilhan Omar? She said it best when a reporter asked her the other day, what do you have to say about Hamas, like killing these babies and taking these hostages and, burning houses and everything else? And her response was, how many more killings is enough for you? Is it 1,000 more? Is it going to be 2,000? Is it going to be 3,000? Would you be fine if all the Palestinians were gone? Is that your point? And I completely agree with that. This is simple bloodlust and revenge. Nothing can justify this. Nothing can justify what's happening in Gaza, unless you think the Israeli life is just inherently more valuable than Palestinian life and you want your revenge in blood. And so you'd have to kill X many more of them than Israelis were lost so you could get that revenge in blood, which is grotesque. Or essentially, if you really do think no Palestinians should be there, which is sick. It was their land for a long, long, long time. They were living there a long time, cultivating the olive trees, growing the tobacco, making the soap, cooking their cultural food, doing their traditional dances. They should be there. They deserve to be there. They belong there. I didn't vote for my government either. I didn't vote for this government. I didn't want them in. Nobody voted for the UK Prime Minister, but that's another story. I don't want to sit here and teach you about UK politics, but nobody voted for Rishi fucking Sunak, who recently chose to tell the Israeli Prime Minister that we all want you to win. Who are you speaking for, Rishi? Because it's not me, and it's not the fucking nearly 300,000 people that protested on the streets this past Saturday, or the 150,000 that protested the weekend before. You're not speaking for us. I was on the street saying something different, surrounded by people who feel the same. My point being, I didn't vote for this government, okay? Let's say this government did something completely abhorrent to another group of people, okay? And you found out through the news and through information that the people that were responsible for perpetrating this atrocity were in houses in London, maybe. They've got tunnels underneath London where they go into and they live there and they've got bases under there. Would you think that it was okay to level London, to carpet bomb London, to watch kids in London dying in rubble, to watch bodies in London being blown to fucking pieces, to watch blood everywhere, to watch churches and mosques being bombed while they're sheltering untold numbers of unarmed, terrified civilians who need water and food and medical aid? Would you think that was okay if that happened to London? Would you sit by while me and my friends fucking died? If the answer to that is no, then the reason you think it's okay happening to Gaza is racism. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that might be your shadow work. Good luck with that. Take that. Do something with that. Think about it. Should everybody in London suffer because there's a few people in tunnels underneath the ground, or maybe they're using a post in a building, which fucking more than half the time is not true. The Israelis aren't even, the IDF and the fucking government, they're not even naming the terrorists they're killing. They're just saying a number of terrorists were killed. They're not even being specific because they never ever want to tell you that they've dealt with Hamas, because they don't want that. They just want you to literally believe that they're still dealing with Hamas and still dealing with Hamas until they've taken over the land. This is a fucking land grab. Know your history. Know the history of the region. Know how much land they've grabbed already. They want Gaza for a fucking fun fair. So no, look, at the end of the day, I've said what I feel about Hamas. Like I said, I don't want to have a picnic with Hamas. Not impressed with their charter. Don't think they're the best thing for Palestinians. Palestinians deserve better. Do I understand how they got into power? Yeah. Do I give myself that context and that nuance? Absolutely. But to keep coming back to it is just, you don't have any more arguments. Those were the comments I received, and those are the answers that I have for you, okay? I'm going to leave the comments section on this video open with no censored words, no limitations or anything. It's a place for discussion and it's a place for catharsis. I will remove anything anti-Semitic and I will remove anything Islamophobic. You can ask me any questions that you want there. There are no stupid questions. If you have questions and you've been wondering where to ask those questions and you've been afraid or you don't know who to ask and you want to ask me something about the history, about my own views, about any fears that you have, I will try to be as present as I can in that comment section for the next week or so. Okay. After that, it might die off a bit because I'm a busy woman. I've got lots of things to do, and God knows I'm organising and protesting a lot more now, as well as having all these other things I'm doing with my business and everything. So, but for the next week or so, maybe 2, and then occasionally after that, I will make myself present to you. Okay. And if you have critiques for me that you want me to answer, that is okay. And I will try to answer them. I'm going to try not to go over anything though that I've answered here in this video, because I don't see the point in repeating myself. I will leave a lot of links in the description to places that you can donate, for places where you can get more information. I will make a playlist of various videos that I think are useful for you to understand the history of Palestine and what has been going on there, especially in relation to settler colonial violence, what's happening in the West Bank, home demolitions, violence, murder against Palestinians. I'm going to put that in there. I've watched a lot of documentaries, a lot of journalism over the years on this. And I'm going to make a post on Instagram shortly, which will have a massive list of accounts. The Gaza post that I did on Instagram a few days ago, I'll link that down below. It's got some amazing Palestinian accounts and Palestinian reporting and Middle Eastern reporting on there. I definitely suggest you go follow all of them on Instagram. I don't fuck with TikTok really, so I don't really know what's going on there, but I'm sure a lot of those same creators post on there as well. Okay. I'm just not that keen on TikTok. I just can't really do it right now. But I'm going to make another post where I put more on. Follow my stories if you want access to the things I'm looking at and reading and understanding. There is a highlights reel on my Instagram called Palestine. Go to it. Go through it. There's some really important information there, some really important reels. If you struggle to understand what's going on, you want more information, you don't know who to follow, you don't know where it's at with this subject and you want more, go to the Palestine highlights reel as well on my Instagram. There was another comment that I received a couple of times underneath my post about stopping the siege in Gaza, okay? And it was people that were disappointed in me, people that were saying, you know, you were the first person that taught me tarot. I thought you were so great. I'm so disappointed in you. I'm unfollowing. And I'm not really sure why people decided to post that, because I actually did address that in my post about Gaza. I actually said, oh no, it was in the comments underneath. I actually left a comment for people. I'm going to read it to you. So if anyone's thinking, I'm going to post a comment under this video saying, I'm so disappointed in you, Kellyanne, I'm unfollowing, I'm so disappointed. I'll read you what I said on that post the other day. I said, often when I see people posting about their support for Gaza, I see that they receive comments saying, I'm so disappointed in you for posting this. If you are about to tell me that you're disappointed in me, let me assure you that I'm disappointed in you too, whoever you are. I'm disappointed in your willful ignorance and your ability to harden your heart to a humanitarian atrocity on this scale, just because you've swallowed the same bile that's been creating mandates for this kind of cruelty since the beginning of history. And I want to add something to that as well. If you're disappointed in me and you're going to unsubscribe, believe me, I've obviously already thought about the risks of talking about this. I've always known about the risks of talking about this because for some reason, for a long, long time, people have had a real problem with it. They haven't mobilized for it as much as they should have done. They haven't gotten into activism or really understood it as much as they should have done. So when I speak out on it, I know that there's going to be some ignorance. Now there are almost 300,000 people taken to the streets of London and mass protests all over the world in so many major cities. I know that I'm going to catch more heat. I've already caught heat. I've been catching heat about this shit for a long time. You don't think that I imagined that I might catch a bit more now? Unfollow me in silence. I don't need to know you unfollowed me. I clearly don't care about your audience membership as much as I care about speaking on this. I've already made that decision. Wouldn't that be obvious to you? I've thought about the risks. I've thought about, you know, the cost benefit analysis, and I know that this is who I am. This has always been who I am. Always. My father taught me about this situation when I was about 13. The first time I asked, what is going on there, you know, from the news or something, and he explained it all to me, and I've been reading about it and caring about it and wearing this about it ever since. So you being disappointed in me, I already knew that would happen with a section of you. and it's okay. Before I go, I don't usually thank people at the end of a video, but I want to thank a few people at the end of this one. I want to really thank my good friends and my mum and my partner for supporting me and speaking out about Palestine at this time. They know it's close to my heart, and they know that it's becoming increasingly uncomfortable to talk about this at the moment, and that people are nervous about it. And I really appreciate them for having my back and knowing my heart and knowing that I'm not a cruel person, and that this is something that I want to talk about, and they supported me in that. I also want to thank one of my lovely Palestinian friends, Mira, who I marched with on the 14th of October, and she was marching again last Saturday. I couldn't march because I had a lot of clients, but I'll march with her again, and I've marched with her before, and she's inspired me so much to use my voice, and she's strong as fuck, and she encourages me, even when her heart is obviously breaking. And she reminded me lately to be brave. I saw her being brave, and that reminder to be brave myself was a gift. She demonstrated to me how correct it is to feel your pain, acknowledge your fear, and also hold the courage of your convictions at the same time. And that is grace. So I really want to thank you, Mira. And I also want to thank an Israeli friend of mine, Melody, in Tel Aviv. Her nephew lost his friend in the Hamas attacks. She also has been encouraging me to use my voice to speak out about this genocide. She's volunteered with Food Not Bombs to deliver food to the Negev Bedouin. In case you don't know, the Negev Bedouin is a nomadic Arab tribe that are native to the Negev desert in Israel. And they have been pushed out of their pastoral lands over time by the Israeli government. They have received no help, even though they lost people in the Hamas attacks, both taken hostage and killed. They've been crammed into unrecognised settlements that are subject to evictions. They've been dismissed. They've been overlooked. Their situation is yet another symptom of apartheid. And I think, in terms of how an ordinary Israeli who does not support her government could respond to something like this, taking food to the Negev Bedouin is pretty fucking based. So, Melody, you're awesome. And since Melody and her comrades are being surveilled and curtailed right now, I would like to read something that she recently wrote to end this video. It's called I Do Not Believe. I do not believe in treason. I do not believe I can betray anyone but myself. I do not believe I am safe while others are dying in my name. I do not believe my liberation is true when my nation subjugates another. I do not believe in bombs. Where can there be life when the anemones are crushed and burned? I do not believe in borders and separation when fences and walls imprison our souls. I do not believe in identity cards, no matter how much I contort it into a shape that tries to fit within its suffocating confines. I do not believe peace is the absence of war. Peace is the effort of love in the face of horror. I believe in love, from the river to the sea. Blessed be.